We're still fine. 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 Okay. We're well, I thought I was only making one of these videos this week, but apparently we get another one. We are getting another one of these videos. And actually, at this point, we done lost so many players. I don't even know how much this really affects the Browns' chance of winning. Like it might be the exact same that it was before all of this went down. But just for those of us who are not informed, well, let me inform you. Recently, it was about 38 minutes before I recorded this video. By the way, let me just tell you a personal story before we get into the news. I know, but I was having a good day. I got tickets secured to Spider-Man a couple of weeks ago. I went to go see Spider-Man. Turned off my phone for the entire day pretty much, just so I could avoid spoilers, so I can watch the movie in peace. It was a worthwhile experience. I turned on my phone at the end of the movie, and I get all of the news. Like all of the news. What news is that? Well, as of right now, Case Keenum has tested positive for COVID-19. So I don't know how the testing works, but like it would be highly unlikely, extremely unlikely that Case Keenum plays. I think Grant Delpit was in there, but I can't confirm that as of right now. What else? What else is it? Okay. Jacob Phillips also on the list. Think that's it. Let me check Cam's Twitter. I'm doing this all live right now, guys, because it's literally, I just found out. I literally turned my phone on not too long ago. But yeah, it is a wild situation. Yeah, Case Keenum, so it's going to be Nick Mullins who starts. Nick Mullins, who has played games in the NFL in the Shanahan system with the 49ers. Look, as far as that one goes, y'all know how I feel about Case Keenum. I don't really think it's going to be that much different with Nick Mullins. We haven't been getting great quarterback play anyway, so it's not like the offense relies on it, and it's not like the team relies on the offense to win games at this point. So, that is what it is here. Now, from Cam Justice's Twitter, I have read, and it says, asked if the increasing positive COVID-19 tests on the Browns, if the NFL is considering postponing the game Saturday, the NFL responded with no change. They're not changing the game. Now, part of this is because it's a national TV game, and it would have to be to a point for a national TV game to be moved that the Browns could not field a 53-man roster. And given that the rules make it so you don't have to wait and put a vaccinated player in quarantine for 2 weeks before you sign them, they're going to play this game. This game is being played on Saturday at 4:30. It's not changing. Now, I know people point to other scenarios in which the game got moved. It just doesn't apply to this situation. I think the time they moved the Ravens game, they couldn't field enough players or coaches or something like that. Look, the situation that triggers a movement is just not going to happen, especially for a national TV game, especially for a team who plays 2 Saturday games in a row. So that's that. Now, there was a release on the current changes to the testing and protocols. I'm going to read that article to you guys. I'm just going to try to get more news out here. An NFLPA spokesman, this is per Cam Justice's Twitter, tells me they are continuing to work with player leadership and the league to ensure that proper protocols and options are in place so that players feel comfortable, safe, and healthy. Everything that transpired. So, that really tells us nothing here. Yep, let me jump to the article, guys. And in a memo, the league sent to 32 teams, NFL Management Council, and football operations and player health services, safety divisions, updates the COVID-19 protocols effective immediately until the end of Week 15 games were explained. The NFL has updated the testing protocol so that it is required for a fully vaccinated player or staff member who is asymptomatic for at least 24 hours and test positive to test out of quarantine and return to team activities. These changes could help the Browns get players eligible during this outbreak. So let me read that again. The NFL has updated the testing protocols that is requiring for a fully vaccinated player or staff member who is asymptomatic for at least 24 hours and test positive for the virus to test out of quarantine and return to team activities. What that sounds like and what that is could be two different things, but to me, what that sounds like, again, this is just me trying to decipher it, not what the league is saying. What that sounds like is if a player is asymptomatic and vaccinated, and they still continue to test positive for COVID, but they're asymptomatic after 24 hours, they can play. That's what it sounds like. Now, there's a whole other rake of consequences in here for that. I'm not even going to dive deep into that because that people start talking about stuff that ain't even about football at that point, and I'm not trying to hear all that. But that's what it sounds like as far as football goes. The Browns could get some of these players back if after 24 hours they show no signs or symptoms of having a serious case of COVID-19 or a symptomatic case of COVID-19. Okay, so this is the new way. Okay, so this is how the NFL has further expanded upon the new rules for testing back. The NFL has updated the testing protocol that requires a fully vaccinated player or staff member who is asymptomatic for at least 24 hours and test positive to test out of the quarantine. Now, what does that mean? The first way a player or staffer can test out of a quarantine is to have 2 negative PCR tests the day of or after, or the tests that indicate a cycle threshold of 35 or greater, indicating lower amounts of virus and lower infectivity. So if they have a very, very small and mild case of COVID that is not likely to be transferred to somebody else or be very contagious, they can play if they test for that. The second way a player or staffer can test out of quarantine is to have 1 negative PCR test or a test threshold of 35 or greater on any time or day. So basically what it looks like they're doing, and before I explain, let me get to the third one actually. The third way a player or staffer can test out of quarantine is to have 2 negative rapid Mensa tests with 2 separate swabs anytime day after test. I think that's the original way. All right, so basically what they're saying is that if a player is fully vaccinated and they don't have a very strong case of COVID, they can play despite still technically having COVID, because if it's under a certain amount of COVID, then you are not at risk of mass transmitting this disease to everybody else. So that seems the way they're going to do about it. I don't know how medically sound that is. I'm not an expert on that, but this seems to have come from the experts. So I'm just going to trust that they know what they're talking about here. So if any of those 3 aforementioned situations happen, a player can be activated or able to participate on game day as long as the team submits the activation before the transaction deadline for the upcoming game. So whenever they release the active players, that's also the deadline for this. The player can be activated before being cleared in preparation, but if that player isn't able to test out of quarantine, they will be deactivated and another player will not be able to be elevated in their place. So if you're running tight on time and you want to just try last minute, you can activate a player for the game, but if they don't test out of quarantine, they won't play and you won't be able to replace that player on your 53-man roster. Now, I don't know how many players they're going to allow to do this, right? Because like if a team has an outbreak like the Browns and they put 10 players out there and they all of a sudden have 10 inactive players, then all of a sudden you're like 40 players and you really can't play football like that, but we'll see. Players who are still unable to test out of quarantine protocols will be able to return to to team activities after the standard 10-day quarantine period. Players who test out or return after the standard quarantine period after testing positive will have a 90-day window that they will not have to be tested. For the Browns, that opens up a window for 16 players, 2 coaches, including Baker Mayfield, Kevin Stefanski, who tested positive for COVID-19 before Saturday's game. If any of the testing out options can be met by Saturday, those players can be activated before 4:30 kickoff of the Las Vegas Raiders game. The Browns players on the COVID-19 list would need to have their PCR test collected by Friday and the rapid Mensa test collected by Saturday. A PCR test collected by Saturday, and even if it's negative before the transaction deadline, would not be considered clear from that list. Okay, there's a bunch more in that article. That's really what is pertinent to the Cleveland Browns right now. Now, look, I get it. You get 2 quarterbacks out right now. It seems like a time to panic. But I'm actually not freaking out right now. Why? Well, it seems like we could get some of these players back, right? It just seems like the way they adjusted these rules, we might be able to get some players back. So as far as the game goes, that's fine. Also, I don't think there's that big of a difference between what Case Keenum was going to provide this offense and what Nick Mullins was going to provide this offense, right? If we really think about it, yes, Case has experience, but they weren't going to ask Case to win this game. They're certainly not going to ask Nick Mullins. This game was always going to come down to how well Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney plays and how well Nick Chubb plays, right? Those are the 3 players that are going to win or lose you this game despite who else is on the field. We're not really going to ask those guys to make plays, right? This game's not going to come down to Jamarcus Brantley more than likely. So as long as you got Nick Chubb, which seems like we got, as long as you got Myles Garrett, seems like you got, as long as you got Jadeveon Clowney, before this outbreak started, you got the same chance. I think you got David Njoku back, so whip-de-doo. We got him back, but we'll see. We will see what happens with this game. The news keeps getting crazier with this, but hey, I know it sounds easy to panic right now. I know it sounds easy to freak out. I know everybody is just shocked and just doesn't know what to do with this information, but even if those players don't play, I don't think that changes your chances of winning this game that greatly. It definitely affects it a little bit, but I don't think it affects it that greatly. And who knows? Before Saturday, like by tomorrow, we might find out that we're going to get like 8 of these players back, and we would have done all this for no reason. So we'll see what happens, but I think there's some good news to balance this out. It's just the bad news is going to dominate the conversation, but it seems like the NFL came up with some updated protocols that make sense and actually might help the Cleveland Browns in this situation. But that's all I have to say about this whole situation. Hopefully the next time I talk to you, it's GBQC, it's Q&A, it's the regular lead up to the game, and then I'll be on the live stream. Make sure you check me out on them live streams. Make sure you subscribe and notified. But that's going to be it for this video. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.